Hello, hello. I'm Nadia Jordana, and you're watching Talk to the Author. My guest today is Selma P. Verde. She's the author of The Hard Way. It's a book in the young adult fiction genre, and it's been getting rave reviews. Let's go talk to Selma and find out more about what the book is all about. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm just really delighted to have you here too. I've heard a lot of good things about your book. And one of the things I was wondering is, how did your author journey begin? Were you a kid when you started writing?
I was definitely a kid when I started writing. The thing that really got me going was every Christmas, my parents would get me one of those one-year diaries, the ones with the cute little key and the locks that come with them. And it started out as some of the 5-year ones where you had just very small space to write something about each day. Well, I started with those. And then as it got going, I had longer and longer passages to write. And then I started writing kind of silly stories, plays, things that were coming out of my head that were very creative. Not necessarily whatever happened necessarily, but were very creative. And those stories kept getting longer and longer and longer. And then when I was a preteen, I kind of started thinking about, one of these days I'd like to publish a book. I really would. And so as life kept going and things kept getting in the way, I kept trying to write a novel. And finally, I ended up publishing one in 2017. It's called The Hard Way. And it is a young adult novel about coming of age, about choosing your friends and peer pressure.
And that is your first book, and it's part of a series. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is the first book. I do have a second book coming out later on this year. I kind of wanted to do a series because I just didn't know where the process was going to take me.
Yeah, because it's half the time, don't you think the characters tell you what they're going to do and where they're going?
Oh, absolutely. That is definitely the case. I had different things pop up as I was writing, that this character needs to be this way or this character needs to be that way. And you try to force those things to work and it doesn't come together most of the time. There's a reason. And it's part of all a part of the writing process.
Yeah, they are who they are. From where do you get your story ideas, the characters, the situations?
I have had the benefit of having 2 kids. They're now 21 and 19, so they're not truly kids anymore. They're more young adults. But just having them at the house with their friends, being able to watch them interact and be able to see the things that they have to go through. And I also pulled some information from when I was a kid, the different things that I went through and my friends went through, and use that to kind of get things rolling.
Well, and I think, remembering from being a child myself, so many things can happen, and there are so many situations with preteens and teens that can happen. What a wealth of information and situations to build into books for them. There's just so much there.
There definitely is. And it changes with every kid, but it also kind of remains the same. There's some things when I watched with my kids, I've seen this situation before, or I've seen this situation before. And I was thinking that my parents probably went through the same thing with us when they were saying, oh yeah, we've seen this before, or little different scenario, but same, different characters.
Do you have advice for young authors wanting to get into this genre or any other for that matter, but advice to authors just getting started?
My biggest advice to people that are just getting started or trying to figure out if that's what they want to do is to just write. Some days with me, I am a journaler. So what I do is I sit down and I journal. And it could be about feelings, or it could be something about an object in the room. One of the things I wrote about in my blog a couple months ago was about an actual writing prompt, actually being prompted by an object in my house. And it happened to be a desk that's sitting across the room from our dining room. And so I just started writing about the desk, describing it, what color it is, the fact that it has an old fashioned chair in front of it. It's an antique desk. And the desk happened to be in my parents' house when I was growing up. So it brought back history. It brought back memories of my parents. It brought back all these different things. And so now, instead of having this little paragraph about the desk, I ended up with 4 more pages of things that became kind of a reminiscing about that desk. So you don't necessarily need to have something to write about. You can just kind of pick something off the wall, or you can always Google writing prompts and they'll give you different ideas as well. Things that situations that you didn't never would put yourself in, or just about what would you do if this happened? What would you do? Explain what you think of as a lake, what a lake would look like. Just things like that that just get you thinking off onto a different subject.
Well, objects really do hold stories within them, don't they?
They absolutely do.
They have history, they have stories, they have mystery. They hold a lot of things within them that we don't even realize till we start writing. So you're essentially telling these young writers to keep on writing, hone their skills,
Absolutely.
and get better as they go along. And it doesn't really matter so much early on what you're writing about. It's developing that
No, it
skill, and the sometimes interesting stories come out of the most ordinary things.
absolutely they do.
What's coming up next for you?
What's coming up next for me is book number 2. Planning on publishing it later this year. And I've got some ideas for a book number 3. Just ideas at this point. I'm trying to finish one before I start another one, because otherwise we get too far ahead of ourselves. And I'm venturing out a little bit more with book fairs. And that's where the Deep Valley Book Festival has been really great on me getting my feet wet with getting involved in book festivals. And I haven't done much with that before. I'm also now doing a job where I have a little more time to do some other things on the side. And so my writing is taking a little more of a front seat than it did even a couple of years ago. So I'm excited about that too, to blog some more and to develop my website some more.
Yeah, the book festivals are a great place both for readers and for authors to network, meet a lot of different people with that have the same interests. You meet other authors, you meet readers, you meet some of your fans.
Exactly.
And that's always a fun thing to do. Well, I wanted to also ask you if there's anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about.
Probably a little bit more about about my writing process and just how that works. I don't write off an outline. A lot of authors need to put an outline down before they can even start writing. I tend to take an idea and I start writing about that idea. And then it grows and it grows, just like I journal, just like I talked about with the desk. The story starts and I just start writing it. I probably don't have a really good idea of an outline until maybe 2/3 of the way into it. And then I set down the outline to see what I'm missing, see what the story needs to make it a novel, or make it so somebody can read it and really enjoy it and understand it. Because sometimes your ideas go off in 7 different directions and only you understand what it looks like. So process can be different. And that's, I guess, the other advice I'd like to give also is that your process may not be the same as mine. You may need an outline, or no, it's okay that if you don't have an outline, you can still write. It doesn't have to have an outline to get the book done. So that would be the other thing that I would add.
Back in one last question, back in 2017, when you first released your book, that was before COVID, were you able to travel around maybe the state a little bit, do some in-person book fairs, do book release or anything like that at the time? I know now it's practically impossible. All people can really do are the digital events, which are turning out to be pretty darn good, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I did maybe 2 or 3 book fairs when I published my first book.
Mhm.
And then as life goes, you try to balance life and books at the same time. And the choice became at that point a little more about life than about the book.
Mhm.
So, yeah, in these digital book fairs, I mean, I did my first one in October of last year. And I was, you're kind of skeptical because you're used to the other way, right? You're used to going to the fair, meeting with people, networking with people, and that kind of thing. I think Deep Valley Book Festival has done a great job of putting the thing together so it works. It actually, you go and you're going to an online bookstore essentially, and you get to see each of the authors and you get to see their books and you get to learn a little something about them as you're doing it, which I think is a great substitute for being able to be there in person.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think they caught it. I think they got it. I think they got how to make it work in the situation that we're in with COVID.
I think they're doing a good job of it. And another one last question. I tend to like to have control over my books, and I'm a big fan of self-publishing. And in this new world, traditional publishing is really difficult, but there are hybrid publishers. What of those three did you choose to use for your books?
I've done self-publishing. I wanted to have that control over it. And I also wanted to kind of work through it on my own, the whole process. And what I've been noticing too with traditional publishing, they're relying on the authors to do a lot more things than they actually did back in the day.
Yeah.
So they're wanting them to do more promotion and to do more of the extra stuff that they used to take care of everything about.
Pretty much all of it.
Exactly. And the other reason why I chose to self-publish is I wanted to be able to not have to give up any rights to it. And I also didn't want to wait. I didn't want to have to send out, 700 different manuscripts to come up with one person to take it.
And wait 5 years before you ever see it in print, and it's never quite the way you wanted it to, and the cover isn't what you wanted. And we think alike in that respect. I applaud your choice of self-publishing.
Well, and the other thing is too, like you just said, wait 5 years to publish. I had waited so long to publish anyway that I really just I wanted it to be ready. I mean, and I went through all the steps. I have an editor, I have a cover designer. I don't do it all by myself when it comes to those things, because I know that I'm not the best person to cover design. And you really can't edit your own stuff necessarily.
No.
So you really need those extra people involved. So I do have a team.
Yeah.
But I don't have a traditional publisher.
I'm in your camp with that method. So great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun.
And thank you everyone for watching today. We'll see you next time with a brand new guest.